opening the center immediately, aiming to develop pieces rapidly and challenge the opponent's pawn structure. The Sicilian's asymmetric pawn structure immediately creates dynamic imbalances and exciting attacking possibilities on both sides. Securing the center and preparing d4 offers rapid development. Developing the knight to a central square, this move fortifies the d4 outpost and prepares for a fight for space. Preparing a fianchetto offers long-term queenside pressure and a solid defensive structure. Embracing a fianchetto, black solidifies the queenside and prepares for queenside expansion. Anchoring the bishop to the long diagonal, white aims to control the center and prepare for kingside castling. Solidifying the fianchetto, your bishop now eyes the long diagonal, influencing the center and preparing for potential queenside pressure. Solidifying the center and preparing for a potential pawn push, this move subtly reinforces white's structure. Solidifying the center while opening a diagonal for the queen is a smart, fundamental response to white's setup. Unleashing the kingside pawn storm, white aggressively seeks space and attacking chances, though it potentially weakens their own monarch. Developing the knight to its natural outpost solidifies black's central influence and prepares for further kingside expansion. Preparing to castle kingside, this knight's repositioning aims to bolster the king's defense while potentially eyeing the kingside attack. Securing the king, castling initiates a safer phase, preparing for potential pawn thrusts and piece maneuvering across the board. Solidifying kingside space prevents immediate pawn advances, preparing for a potential kingside pawn storm later. Shifting the knight to e8 prepares a potential kingside pawn storm, or offers it as a sacrifice if the position opens. Asserting dominion on the kingside, this aggressive pawn thrust aims to seize space and stifle black's potential queenside counterplay. Securing the rook on the b-file anticipates potential queenside expansion and prepares for a thematic exchange on c3. Solidifying the king's sanctuary opens up avenues for queenside expansion. Unlocking queenside dynamism, this pawn thrust aims to disrupt white's kingside buildup and seize crucial central space. Shifting the knight to attack the queenside pawn, storm frees up the other knight for central influence. Breaking open the queenside pawn structure now seizes crucial space and threatens white's king safety. Preparing to reinforce the kingside without cluttering central squares, this knight repositions for a potential e4-e5 push. Opening a vital flank passage aims to outflank white's solid center and disrupt their kingside plans. Consolidating on the queenside, preparing to contest the open b-file while securing the rook from pawn advances. Expanding on the queenside, this aggressive pawn thrust aims to create an immediate structural imbalance and disrupt white's development. Challenging black's queenside expansion, this bishop repositions to support d4 and I potential breaks. Preparing to liberate the queenside pawns and potentially open lines for counterplay. Opening the queenside allows a pawn storm to develop, potentially weakening white's structure. Opening the f-file offers active counterplay, challenging white's queenside structure. Opening the a-file immediately offers tactical skirmishes and challenges black's queenside expansion. Asserting control over the c7 square, this knight prepares for a potential foray into white's territory or a swift redeployment. Unleashing the kingside pawns creates immediate attacking pressure, aiming to crack open black's defenses before they can solidify. Solidifying the pawn chain and preparing for a potential kingside attack feels sound, albeit a bit passive. The queen steps forward, potentially supporting a kingside pawn storm or preparing to join the queenside skirmish. A quiet retreat, preparing to rejoin the central struggle by rerouting the rook and potentially reinforcing the kingside or d-file. Initiating a bold pawn sacrifice to open lines against black's castled king. Retrieving the bishop to h8 seems passive, sacrificing valuable central influence for defensive cover, potentially allowing white's kingside pawn storm to gather momentum. Unleashing a knight toward the kingside promises aggressive intentions, aiming to exploit the weakened dark squares around black's monarch. Exploring the queenside pawn chain, but it leaves the kingside defense precariously thin. Initiating a kingside attack, sacrificing material to tear open the opponent's defenses and expose their monarch. Opening the H-file offers a bold but risky pawn sacrifice, potentially exposing your king's defense in exchange for an assault. Unleashing the queen to pressure the weakened kingside, aiming for tactical fireworks. A bold repositioning to infiltrate the queenside, aiming to disrupt white's pawn chain and seize initiative. Sensing a tactical opportunity, white immediately redirects the queen to assault black's weakened kingside, aiming to pry open the defenses. Reinforcing the kingside is paramount after white's aggressive pawn push and knight sortie. Recapturing with the knight reshapes the pawn structure, aiming to exploit the now open G-file for attacking potential. Sensing opportunity, black thrusts the knight forward, aiming to dismantle white's queenside pawn structure and activate the piece. Bolstering the king's defense and preparing a potential counterattack through the center. Preparing to exploit the weakened light squares on white's kingside and potentially pierce the central pawn structure. Unlocking the F-file for aggressive play, this rook's repositioning initiates a potent counterattack against black's kingside defenses. Boldly sacrificing a rook to disrupt white's kingside buildup, aiming to exploit the weakened pawn structure. Recapturing the piece aggressively seizes the open file, directly threatening the black king's sanctuary. Black's recapture ignites central tensions, challenging white's piece coordination and opening new avenues for active play. Unleashing a powerful knight sacrifice that aims to rip open the queenside and expose black's king to a devastating pawn storm. Black's knight hops into a fascinating outpost, challenging white's central control and potentially opening new lines of attack. A daring attack on the weakened kingside, sacrificing material to ignite a central assault. Opening the H-file is a risky gambit, potentially sacrificing the bishop for activity. Unleashing a pawn avalanche, white creates immediate threats on the kingside while neglecting central control. Sacrificing material to shatter the opponent's pawn shield around the king is a bold, double-edged decision. Strikes at the exposed king, exploiting a fatal weakness in black's pawn structure. Opening the E-file for your rook offers exciting counterplay against white's advanced pieces. A desperate attempt to reignite the attack, sacrificing material for a fleeting initiative against the exposed black monarch. Fleeing the immediate attack, the black king scurries to safety, but the open files still pose a significant threat to his position. Pushing the pawn further creates a crucial escapade for the enemy king and opens a path for your knight. A subtle repositioning, aiming to solidify the center and potentially prepare for more activity on the queen side. Unleashing a potent rook sacrifice, white opens avenues for piece penetration towards black's exposed king. Intercepting the passed pawn's advance with the knight suddenly intensifies the central fight. Unleashing the rook to challenge the kingside pawn structure, aiming to dismantle black's defenses. Reclaiming the outpost on d4 fortifies black's queenside presence and disrupts white's central pawn advances. Forces a king shuffle, potentially opening new avenues for the knight or centralizing the monarch. Sacrificing the knight like this exposes black's king to a devastating attack on the open diagonals. Unleashing the queen into the weakened kingside now forces mate or severe material loss. Relocating the king to safety is paramount, preventing any immediate mating threats and buying precious time to reorganize the defense. Securing the king's escape square now is paramount before any aggressive pawn pushing. A crucial moment for regrouping, aiming to consolidate defensive pieces and survey the chaotic queenside battlefield. Exposing the black king further along the light squares now dominates the thinking process. Unleashing a pawn storm on the queenside, a bold attempt to shatter white's pawn structure and generate counterplay.